and including all the etymologies. So he got a very wide vocabulary. Mind you, that won't help you with third tenses.
Uh, I gotta say, I don't know if I want to go that far as to read the dictionary, but
Yes.
uh, but it's definitely helpful. I think
Hmm.
like if I wanted to master prose, that is what I should do.
Maybe.
No, I mean I'm thinking back to my art student days. I spent months. All I did for months was just drawing cubes,
Mm.
cylinders, and cones are really hard.
Mm.
Yeah, and I spent months and months doing that, and even after I progressed beyond that basic work, I still go back to that
Right.
all the time. So
Right. Sounds like Cézanne probably did that sort of thing because his paintings are kind of full of geometric shapes, aren't they? The
actually,
sort of
actually,
yeah.
Cezanne's geometric shapes are terrible,
Are they?
but his brushworks are amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's not a realist painter, to be honest.
Uh,
So what kind
but
of artists are you into?
well, I like the Impressionists a lot,
Monet.
and yeah, and I like science fiction art when it's good, and I like Bruce Pennington.
Oh, so that oh, you have the book. That's awesome, man. It's
Yep, I've got all of these old what are they called Panther books.
what's the name of the artist again? That did that.
Bruce Pennington. I'll write it
Bruce
out.
Pennington.
Hang on.
Okay, got it.
I'll get the others. I'll get the others.
Yeah, go for it.
Hello.
Hello, Nikki. You're late.
I'm not.
You must now drink vodka to make up for that.
I was exactly on time, and then it became 22-1
Well, you're late
as soon as I
relative.
joined.
You're late relative to us, so you still have to drink up.
That's not how being on time works.
What, you don't want to drink up?
No. We need to do this sober, I think.
Oh, really? Do we?
Mm.
Okay. One moment. Oh,
So what did you bring, Rob?
I brought these covers.
Oh, so is that Bruce Pennington again?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean this
Hmm.
is his style, and so is this.
Right. Nice.
Doesn't seem to shop very well. There seems to be some light shining on it.
Oh well,
Hang on.
from your screen, I suppose. Oh, but I
Yeah.
get the gist, and I'm sure we can do that search
uh,
online ourselves later on.
Yeah.
just a quick question, guys. How long do you think the recording is gonna take today?
Oh, well, let's keep it to about half an hour, I guess.
Half an hour, you want to do?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why don't we start?
Okay.
Let's just talk about. Oh, by the way, the camera's already rolling, so.
Oh, is it? Oh, hello everyone. My name is Nikita Surf. I'm very happy to see you coming in from Stuttgart, Germany. The weather conditions are pretty good.
Sure, whatever. Wait, did you say the sausages are pretty good?
No, I said the weather. The
Oh,
weather's very
well,
good.
whatever. I don't care about weather. I prefer my meat.
You like sausages? Okay. I
We're trying to keep this child friendly. I'll
Sh-
try. I'll try.
What?
I'll try.
You're the one who mentioned sausages. What do you mean? You're like
Okay.
you like dropped a nuclear bomb and you're like we don't want to use the weapons
All
of
right.
mass destruction.
Okay. So today we're gonna talk about a short story by Clark Ashton Smith, as Rob has been showing the books. It's called Xeethra.
Yes.
The title is called Xeethra. Okay, so I'm gonna start with a short synopsis, and just let me pull out my notes.
Sure thing.
So I get a feeling. So first of all, before we even start, I get a feeling that Xeethra is actually part of a larger story. It's part of a larger piece of work. But before we even get into that, let me just talk about the story. So our story starts with a goat herder who was herding a bunch of goats that his uncle had. His uncle was Porson.
Pornos.
There we go, Pornos. And so he drove the goats one day to this strange valley where he ate a piece of fruit, and after eating the piece of fruit, he started getting visions of a king in another city, country. And this is where, for the boy Xeethra, his name is Xeethra, reality starts to blur for him, and he's starting to have problems telling apart whether he is Xeethra or he is the king. And I think the king's name is
Amero.
Which is actually just a little, like a super small side note. I'm pretty sure that's the name of a candy in Russia.
Okay.
Which I don't know what it actually means, but I think it comes from sort of like a Middle Eastern sort of language.
You are keeping very strongly to the spirit of the podcast, because that is a total tangent.
But look, it just came into my head. You're the one who made me drink.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, so being of confused identity, Amero / Xeethra is now having some issues, because on the one hand he thinks he's a king, and on the other hand he thinks he's a goat herder. But the identity of the king was starting to overtake Xeethra, and he could not live with the squalor of his uncle Pornos' rude mud hut and all that. And so he set off on a journey to find his lost kingdom, which is I believe the name is Khalees in Château.
Yes. Yeah. Well, Khalees is the kingdom. Château is the city.
Right. Château is the city, and the kingdom is Khalees.
The capital. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so this journey took him many moons. It was a very long journey, and Clark Ashton Smith actually skipped over a lot of that. But the kingdom that Khalees is actually Château, that's a city, right? Château is at least 100 leagues from where he was. And that entire journey was like really shortened. And our protagonist, when he got to the city, he was mightily confused, because the city was dead. It was dilapidated. It was only lepers lived in it. And he was having such problems trying to reconcile the two, his memories and what he's seen before him. And the fruit, which I neglected to mention, was from the garden of the god of the dead, or is it the demon of the underworld?
Well, it's not specifically said. It's just said that it's Poseidon, the lord of the underworld.
Right. Anyway, he ate that fruit, and now an envoy of Poseidon appeared before Xeethra / Amero, and offered him a deal. Like, if you give your soul to me, says the envoy, I can bring you back to when your kingdom was in its full splendor, and you can live out your life as a king. The only condition is that should you ever remember that you were a goat herder, everything will end, and your soul is forfeit, and you will never get back to. You will never be able to relive your life as a king.
Can I just correct you there a bit?
Okay.
Yeah, it's actually more tricky than that. It's not if you remember you're a goat herd. It's if you start to get fed up with being a king, bored with being a king, and wish you were just a goat herd or something equivalent to that, then if you neglect your duties as a king because you want the simple life, then everything will revert to what it is now.
Yes.
Yeah, it's essentially like if you like, if you fail in your duties. I think that's what more of what he's saying. I think that's what I got out of it again, but I could be wrong.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Great correction, because there's definitely a lot more import in than just remembering being a goat herd. Yeah.
And these are the actual words. It's a fairly short paragraph. There is more to be said, resumed the shadow. Not wholly have you remembered your other life, but merely those years that correspond to your present youth. Living again as a Miro, perhaps you will regret your royalty in time, and if such regret should overcome you, leading you to forget a monarch's duty, then the whole necromancy shall end and vanish like vapor.
Beautiful. Yes, that's it. Exactly. I'm bringing the mic closer. So to continue, where was I? So he then lived out his life as a king. He was crowned, and then for the first few years of his kingship, everything was very nice, very pleasant. The kingdom was running well, and all was good and proper and in its place. But that typically is an illusion, because when a kingdom does well, any country that does well, that seemingly does well, is in its golden age, is actually on its way to declining. And the ROAT is elsewhere, but it's just not visible yet. And so slowly, as he climbed into his 20s, I think, those ROAT start to appear in the form of barbarians in the more arid regions, and their incursions and raids into the villages, and then banditry started popping up more and more, and plagues and stuff like that. Yes, exactly. And I think his ministers are all quite incompetent as well. It was just a couple of sentences in the short story, but it gives paints a picture of a kingdom that no longer knows what it's doing, has lost touch with its people. And so as the duty started, as the stress of seeing all this decline gets heavier, Xeethra or Amero starts retreating into pleasures of the flesh, drinking and
he gave himself to long nights of debauch.
That's okay. Clark Ashton Smith described it better than I did. I am properly chastened.
Look, he wrote it, so of course he described it well.
Fair enough. Anyway, so it got to the point, and then our Lord of the Underworld. Is it the Lord of the Underworld, or was it his envoy who came to him as a piper?
The envoy, like no, like a piper came to him. Yes. Like a really, really well-mannered bard who started to sing him songs about a simpler life, a life of a goat herder that one could enjoy without care.
It was the envoy, but disguised
as Spoilers. for the listeners who didn't read the book.
This whole thing.
Well, this whole session is one big spoiler, isn't it?
Yes,
it was a joke. I'm sorry.
Captain Obvious. Yeah.
Actually, there is another. Somebody else has done a podcast on this.
Really?
Very story. Yeah, so I found that out this evening. So we've got competition.
Oh,
Here we go.
Whatever. We'll do the way we do it, and then he does the way he does it, and then we'll see. Anyway. Oh wait, maybe we should plug the guy. What's his podcast name?
I haven't noted it down. I didn't note it down.
That's right. Don't give anything to competition. That's the first thing.
I tried Nameless Podcaster of Xeethra.
He tried to help you.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so after Xeethra heard the piper, he started to really yearn for a simpler time. Yes, yearning for a simpler time. Sure. Anyway. My feelings aside, Xeethra eventually just asked the piper to take him away to where this place where he can be a simple goat herder and not worry about the stress of leadership anymore. And so then as he gets closer to where the goat herding valley is supposed to be, he starts to remember his past life as Xeethra. And that is when the envoy appeared before him and said, basically, you failed, and now you have to live with that knowledge. And Xeethra was like, okay, fine, you can take my soul. And then with what I think, like, this is like, in a way, it's like super
irony,
but also like there's something really badass about the way the envoy basically said to Xeethra, like, I don't really need to take your soul, you can just be where you are, you'll always be part of the Dark Lords.
Yeah, like I don't need to actually have it. Like, we just own you.
Yeah, we just own you for good.
We just own you, man. Just goodbye. Yeah.
At all times and in all places, your soul shall be part of the dark empire of Poseidon.
That's pretty final.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really would not want to hear that kind of stuff coming from a colossal armored figure that's like sort of shimmering in the sky. No, that is quite ominous.
Yeah.
And so that is Xeethra in a nutshell. Okay, thoughts?
Well, we started to quote stuff from the thing. I want to focus on one particular quote, and I want to just like give me like 2 minutes to talk about it because
go for it.
I really like it. So this is right as our as our protagonist, who at this moment truly believes that he is a Marrow and not Xeethra. He arrives at the ruins of this beautiful capital that he remembers that he was destined to rule. And he walks around to see how desolated everything is. And then he meets these, as he describes them, creatures who then turned out to be just diseased people, these lepers. And as he begins talking to them, this line is said, "Who are ye that dwell in my place of Xeethra?" He inquired at length.
Yeah.
"Behold, I am King Amaro, the son of Eldamak, and I have returned from a far land to resume the throne of Calais." And this is the quote that I really like. At this, a loathsome cackling and tittering arose among the lepers. "We alone are kings of Calais." That is such a badass line. First of all, I really like the "we alone are the kings of Calais," because you can imagine these like, people who are like missing limbs, and they're all sort of like crowding this guy, and they, he's standing there, and they're saying this to him. So it's a badass line to say to a king, like, "We alone are the kings of Calais." But it doesn't stop there. One of them told the youth, "The land has been a desert for centuries, and the city of Xeethra had long lain unpeopled save by such as we, who were driven out from other places. Young man, you are welcome to share the realm with us. For another king, more or less, is a small matter here. And what I really like about this line is that what he's really saying is like one fortunate soul more or less doesn't matter. We're all here because we're doomed, because we have nowhere else to go. So he's mocking this guy, like, you know, maybe he has some brain damage. He's thinking, like, you know, he's proclaiming to be king of this kingdom that hasn't existed for centuries, right? And so he's like, yeah, we're all kings here, man. Like, take a seat.
Hmm.
It's pretty what's it called? It gives me this very powerful feeling of some things cannot be handled by any person. Doesn't matter how much money they may have, or how much power they may be wielding, or how much time they may be having. If you do something to a person, to take everything away from them, no matter how big they thought of themselves to be, they will still be on the same level as any other person. We all have to face things at this point that you cannot escape, like death, right?
Mm.
So when he comes to these people and he proclaims his title, the title means nothing. That there's no land for you to rule. There's no people for you to oversee. So join us, king. You're just a king like us. You're no one.
That's very true, and it's true not just for Xeethra, the capital, but before he gets there, he notices that the whole country has
been destroyed.
Been encroached upon by the desert.
I believe he describes that there's like a lush ocean and the smell of breeze when he first returns to the land after he makes the deal. So I guess the place was like next to a big sea or something before this happened.
Yes. Calais is the Xeethra is by the ocean. It's shore on the shore. But further inland, when he first gets to Calais, there's a paragraph here. Now, from the high ridge of the border, he gazed down upon Calais, which had lain like a long verdant scroll beside the sea. To his wonderment and consternation, the wide fields were sere as if with autumn. The rivers were thin threads that wasted themselves in sand. The hills were gaunt as the ribs of unceramented mummies. And there was no greenery other than the scant herbage which a desert bears in spring.
Well, obviously, Rob, you're the person who told us that you'd like to dissect this story. You know, I think it would be prudent for you to give us a bit of a reasoning as to why. I mean, I know you love the writer himself, but why this? Why this short story in particular?
Yeah. I think perhaps it's because it's, even when you think about Clark Ashton Smith's very high standard of writing, there's usually something you can say is wrong with most of his stories, or not perfect. But I think this one is actually perfect. There's not a word wrong, and it's perfectly constructed. Everything, the whole 20 pages is just a masterpiece from beginning to end. And not only that, but also he manages to create effects which I don't know that he's created elsewhere in his stories. The precise effect of the Poseidon's sort of underworld. You think, well, you think of hell or something gloomy and sinister, and it is sinister, but it's very beautiful at the same time. XJ, you mentioned that he went to a fertile valley and
No,
found
I
a
didn't
fruit.
say that. I think what I just said was he just went somewhere and found this place.
Right. Well, I think you did. You mentioned something about where he found the fruit, and that's true. But actually, there's a lot more to it. He found a cavern, and went down the cavern and found light at the bottom of the cavern, and it opened out into seemingly what was another world, and that was the world where these fruits grow, which started him on the route to his remembering his kinship.
I want to jump in here and just quickly say something, because I kind of deliberately skip over that part, because actually, like, the best part of the book for me was actually the discovery of the valley.
Yeah.
But I figured, Rob, you would do better justice. Or rather, I think at some point we would have gotten into a discussion about this, because one of the things about that particular scene is if you think back to a lot of mythology around the world, and I wonder if Clark Ashton Smith borrowed from it. There are a lot of stories about going down to the underworld and not eating anything from the underworld, because when you eat something from the underworld, you take something back with you.
Yes, I see. Yeah. Well, this would fit in with that, certainly. I'll just read you this paragraph. He stood on, this is when he gets out of the cavern and finds himself in this underworld. He stood on the threshold of a fertile plain that lapsed illimitably into golden distance under the measureless arch of a golden vault. Now, that first sentence is packed with images of blurred distance, isn't it? Lapsed. The plane lapsed away illimitably into golden distance under the measureless arch of a golden vault. Far off, through the misty radiance, there was a dim towering of unidentifiable masses that might have been spires and domes and ramparts. Clark Ashton Smith is really into architecture and things like that. He doesn't like machines.
Spires.
Yes, he likes beautiful buildings, but he wouldn't like machines at all. A level meadow lay at his feet, covered with close-grown curling sward that had the greenness of verdigris. So that's a little sinister touch, isn't it? Because verdigris is a sort of mold of some sort, isn't it? Or tarnishing or something. And the sward at intervals was studded with strange blossoms appearing to turn and move like living eyes. So
that was disturbing when I read that. I was like,
near at hand, beyond the meadow, was an orchard-like grove of tall, amply spreading trees, amid whose lush leafage he descried the burning of numberless dark red fruits. So, dark red fruits, well, slightly sinister. The plain, to all seeming, was empty of human life, and no birds flew in the fiery air. This first mention that the air is somehow fiery, or perched on the laden boughs. There was no sound other than the sighing of leaves, a sound like the hissing of many small hidden serpents. So there you get a hint of serpents in Eden, if you like, but I think this is more like the whole place is packed with menace, but it's at the same time it's irresistibly beautiful. Because he goes on, to the boy from the parched hill country, this realm was an Eden of untasted delights. But for a little he was stayed by the strangeness of it all, and by the sense of weird and preternatural vitality which informed the whole landscape. It certainly, that's the whole thing is pulsing with menace. Flakes of fire appeared to descend and melt in the rippling air. The grasses coiled with verminous writhings. The flowery eyes returned his regard intently. The trees palpitated as if a sanguine ichor flowed within them in lieu of sap. And the undernote of adder-like hissings amid the foliage grew louder and sharper. So there we are. And he doesn't really mind all that much. He just wants to go and pick some of the fruit because
I guess so.
He's so naive.
I gotta say though, like, I only have one word to describe Clark Ashton Smith's writing, and that is just beautiful. Because I mean, I feel as if my English leveled up just reading his stuff. Like, just reading this particular story, it's like, oh my god, the way he strings words together, how he constructs them. That's
well, he did read Webster's dictionary, from cover to cover.
We were just talking earlier before you joined us, Nikki. Tell the story, Rob.
He read Webster's dictionary word for word, including all the etymologies. And he also read the Encyclopedia Britannica at least twice.
That's a great undertaking.
So, yeah. So he knew a thing or two, despite not being to university, and despite never going out of California, I think.
Wow. That's
Well, just another reason to say, the pen is mightier than the sword sometimes.
Well, I gotta admire the guy. I don't know if I could sit through reading the dictionary.
Well, he probably didn't do it at one sitting,
No, it was one sitting, and we're sticking to the story. That's it. He just sat down, and he was like, "I'm not gonna get up until this dictionary's over." Just sat there.
Wow,
Can you imagine? That would be so boring.
That's a mighty challenge. So one thing I want to bring up, which I noted here, at the end of the story, I can't help but wonder if this is just a cycle.
How do you mean?
So Xeethra, I mean, it just came to me, right? Because as I was reading the story, it's like Xeethra found this valley, and then he goes off to find Xeethra, and then he imagines himself a king, lived his life as a king, and then he kind of lost it because the burden started getting stronger, and then he went out back to the goat herding valley, and then remembers himself as Xeethra and not Amero anymore. And the whole time I'm just sitting there and I'm thinking about the role of Poseidon. Like what's his role? Why did the valley suddenly appear? And how did Xeethra even manage to find the underworld? And then why did Poseidon actually offer to let Xeethra live out his fantasy of being a king, his past memory, shall I say, of being a king? And then at the end, just sort of not actually doing anything to Xeethra.
Yes.
So one thing about this particular story is I don't think it's meant to make a lot of sense. It should be felt. Nobody should actually sit down and try to draw lines connecting this from that to the other. But at the end of it, I really cannot help but wonder if this whole thing was just a cycle and Xeethra is just kind of trapped in it, repeating it the whole time.
Like it's his own personal hell kind of a thing?
Yeah, it's I think what XJ's saying brings me to a related point, which is that the evil in this story is not really evil. It's sort of picturesque evil, if you like.
Picturesque.
You get this in some writers, I think, that evil is kind of like a color in the story. It's something there to give the thing more color, and that's, I think, Poseidon is just playing a role to add to the colorfulness of the story, really.
Yeah, I think for better or worse, Tolkien has really colored my vision of what evil really is, and so it's always a foe to be defeated. It wasn't until I got a little bit older that I start thinking differently about evil.
Right. Well, I mean,
I got the impression that this is like a, let's say that there's like a different universe, and in that universe, this is a fairy tale instead of like a piece of fictional literature to be assessed. So like, it felt to me like a cautionary tale to kids not to get way too over in their heads and imagine themselves kings, and just like walk away from their town or something. Yeah, go on.
Like a parable, maybe.
Yeah, like a lesson. You just stay a goat herder, which is a bad lesson, but like that's the way it felt to me. It felt like it's like the Little Mermaid, the one that has her turning into the sea foam at the end. If you remember that, she gets punished for being sort of like adventurous.
Or it could be it's something to tell kings, to say, look, don't try and imagine you're a goat herd. You've got to stick to it.
That's a much better fairy tale, but I don't think the king would listen. He would just like chop off the heads of the people who were telling the story.
Mm.
Well, I mean, one thing about being an artist or a writer, I suppose, is sometimes the reader comes with some interpretation, and the writer will be like, "Oh my God, that's crazy! That's so clever! Why didn't I think of that?"
Yeah, it could be possible. I at least the the intention that I got from it was to showcase this interesting story.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't see that he was trying to make like a bigger point about society or something like that.
No.
I mean, what
He was just trying to create a beautiful thing, which he did.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think, Rob? Because this is one of your favorite stories, am I right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree. It's just a thing of beauty. It's like I don't know, a Fabergé egg or something. It's just not meant to actually make a point. It's just meant to exist.
Mm-hmm.
And it's beautiful.
Yeah, there is another story by the same author that is also to do with snatching back what was lost in time, and that has a very, very different slant on it. It's called The Chain of Aforgoman. It's another of his very good stories, but the evil in that one is more serious, I think, and more destructive. I'll write the. That's one of his best stories as well.
Really?
But it's flawlessly written as well. But it's it's more harrowing than Xeethra.
We can consider doing that maybe for the next podcast, or do you have something? Do you guys have any?
Well, I had the idea I shared with last week. I don't know if we should tell it to the listeners who are listening right now.
That's right. Okay. Well, we'll take it on. I guess because we're coming up to more than 30 minutes now. So, do we have any final word on Xeethra?
Don't think so.
I got something.
Okay, go for it.
One final point, which I find interesting. In the end, he tells him that like you could either like become a goat herder again, or you can spend the rest of your time with these lepers. It doesn't matter to me. I still own your soul. And I think I would find it much more fascinating if the story like maybe went on a bit and showed what because like, is this man's life really over? Like, could he not try and do something with the fact that he has nothing? I mean, it's a very fairy tale ending with him just being sort of like in despair and just being confined to his fate. But in real life, you always have to move on and keep going. So if there's any meaning that I took from the ending, is that like nobody should be like Amaro. Just keep going, because like if you just stop and you're just like, I lost everything, so I'm not gonna do anything about it. Yeah. Okay, well, what's the point of living?
Technically speaking, Amaro was going somewhere. He went backwards.
That's true. I mean, but that's worse, right?
I mean, who knows? Going backwards might be a good thing for some people. I don't know.
That's true.
Yeah.
But at least that's what I got from it. Like, it's just a reaffirmation of what I believe, I guess, which is always try to keep moving forward.
That is Nikki's very positive take. My cynical take is going backwards. What's your take, Rob?
Yeah, well, it's if you think that Xeethra is kind of like full of frustration and futility, you should read Clark Ashton Smith's story, The Last Hieroglyph, because that one makes Xeethra's plot seem really cheerful. In the last hieroglyph, the protagonist just ends up as a mark on a piece of paper. So
what a cheerful guy this
yeah.
He's a poet. He's a poet. That explains a lot.
Yep.
Okay.
Anyway, there we go.
All right, man. I guess we can end the podcast here for this episode here.
Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Okay.
Right, thank you.
Alrighty. Let me stop the recording.